3106, the text number if you want to get in touch. Right now, though, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the Hard Shoulder Nick Charalambous. He's the Managing Director of Alpha Wealth. They're a financial services company. Nick, can you help us to understand what exactly is happening with cryptocurrencies?
Hi, Kieran, and thank you very much. So basically, cryptocurrencies have fallen significantly over the last couple of days. On average, most of the larger coins have fallen by over 25%, and we've seen some of the coins fall by as much as 98%. So there's been some massive, falls. And basically, the reason for that is there's a lot of uncertainty. And interestingly, cryptocurrencies have been quite closely correlated to shares. And we've seen the share price of some even large companies fall quite a lot over the last while. And typically, cryptos have followed that. And then some. And this is the key difference, is that they tend to be more exacerbated both by their price rises and what we're seeing of late, the price falls.
Okay, so they're kind of, and you have to forgive all of my ignorance in this entire area. They're like the opposite of gold. These are not safe havens. These are kind of the extreme version of what is happening in the stock market.
Well, interestingly, Kieran, there was reference to the fact that cryptocurrencies could be seen as a form of store of currency, so almost like gold. Now, I wouldn't see it that way, and certainly what's been happening of late has not suggested that at all. But just to get back to basics, and maybe for some of your listeners, there's a lot of complexity around cryptocurrencies. When you hear things like algorithms and Terra, which is basically what has caused this kind of massive pullback, it is quite complex. But the simplest way I can describe it is that the way I'd look at a cryptocurrency is just it's like having euros in your pocket, but in a digital wallet. And that's really the main essence of what cryptocurrencies are. They've become very speculative. Believe it or not, they're the most widely transacted asset at the moment. So you just get a sense of how much, I suppose, interest and volatility there is, like movement up and down. But yes, I agree with you, Kieran. They're totally uncorrelated to gold.
Yeah, because there was this a famous ad here on television a few years ago where somebody stood up on a bus and they said, I don't know what a tracker mortgage is. And yeah, I'm kind of almost embarrassed to admit it. I'm a little like that with cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. We talk about them on this show. I'm still not entirely convinced I understand what they are or how they work. But the way to think of them, as you say, is like investing in another foreign currency. But as opposed to actually, investing in cold hard cash, I'm investing in a kind of a digital version of it. Is that it?
In essence, Kieran, yes. And you're right, a lot of people have invested. I mean, there was this kind of whole core of people who used the likes of Reddit to invest, particularly during, being at home over the last couple of years. And it became more and more popular. And then when you hear of the likes of, the Elon Musks and so on, you think that it makes it a lot more credible and you try and get involved and it's this fear of missing out. But really what they have become for the mainstay is a form of speculation. It's an investment. We've all heard the stories of people who have bought a property from the gains that they've made, but we don't hear of obviously the stories of those that have lost. And it's all this kind of, it's almost, and I dare say it, but there are a lot of scams out there as well. Your listeners have to be very mindful of the fact that a lot of the advertisements they see on social media are scams, and that's just a reality of this. But again, it's not that, it's not for everyone. It's really a case of people understanding what it is that they're getting involved with.
So, I mean, I know we're not going to get into the business here of giving people kind of concrete investment advice, but it sounds like, there is a place in the investment portfolio for cryptocurrencies possibly, but just not exclusively.
Absolutely, Kieran. I mean, I describe risk on a scale of 1 to 7, and cryptocurrencies are an 8. So read from that what you will. As a very, very small part of someone's portfolio, it's okay. But what I say to them is, and people have said to me over the last couple of days, is it a good time to buy? The market is so, much fallen. Surely this makes sense for me to get involved now. And you'll hear this over the next few days. It doesn't necessarily mean that it won't fall any further. And the other thing is that it still goes back to the basics. Like, why are you investing? Is it to try and make a quick buck, or are you looking to invest for the long term because you believe in the future of, certain coins, and some of them have practical usage. We must not forget that, but in the main, most of the people that are out there making the noise are the ones that have invested. And as I said, it really is very volatile, extremely volatile. And, realistically, I think that because of the, I suppose, increase in inflation that we're seeing at the moment, rising interest rates, people are less prone to take risk, and therefore they're going to continue to cause price falls. That's inevitable, in my opinion.
You're giving me flashbacks, Nick, to about 15 years ago when bank shares started to collapse here in Ireland, and those conversations were being had. Is now a good time to buy shares in Bank of Ireland? And I was working in an office job at the time, and the man sitting across from me, and he just looked over, he said, never try and catch a falling knife, which is advice I try to remember.
And that's a really good, that's absolutely, Kieran, and that's a really good adage. Now, obviously, again, it doesn't mean it'll continue to fall, and there are varying different views, but I certainly would suggest that, like that, you shouldn't really buy something just because its price has fallen. And cryptos are no different from any other asset class. The key thing for your listeners to understand is that there's a whole multitude of, I suppose, different options out there. Most of us have heard of Bitcoin. Some of us have heard of some of the other coins. Terra, which is the coin that's fallen most, it's really like, once you look into it, it's really complex as what happened. It was an algorithm that just couldn't keep up with the market, and it just caused this massive kind of fall. And, its price went from, something like $625 down to 2 cents. It was a huge fall. But again, as I said, it's going to certainly eat up a lot of press over the next, number of days. But we have seen quite a significant pullback in the market over the last 6 months. That much is clear.
All right. Well, as we say, never try and catch a falling knife, but the knife will hit the floor eventually, and maybe you could be the one to pick it up. Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks a million for taking the time to speak to us. Nick Charalambous is the Managing Director of Alpha Wealth.
The Hard Shoulder with Kieran Cuddihy.
With Nissan.
On News Talk.